Hey folks, so if you're here, you probably want to hear what free onboarding mistakes you should avoid in order to have really effective new user onboarding, not only new user onboarding, really, just like Slack. So, this is exactly what I want to talk about today. I make no secret of the fact that I do test and use a lot of different tools every month, and that I do talk to a lot of product managers, product marketing managers, and SaaS founders who want to get some help or feedback on their new user onboarding. So, actually, last week I talked to one guy who built a very robust onboarding in house. And what caught my attention was that they had one modal where the user had to fill in some information, which was pretty straightforward, right? They just had to read the labels on the input fields. But the product manager has built a flow, an onboarding flow on that modal, which consisted of several different tooltips and steps with the next button. And we had a bit of an altercation here because I was like, probably the majority of your users, well, that tour wasn't skippable as far as I remember, by the way, will press the next button and we'll just keep the pressing next button until they finish. And he was like, that's all right. The users that want to read this and like that have the kind of personality that they like to read things like that will complete the onboarding anyway, and the ones that don't won't, right? But yeah, of course that's going to happen, but what's not going to happen is that the majority of the users that don't have the attention span to read through a lot of irrelevant information will probably not read the information on the tooltips and not absorb what the product manager wanted to teach them. So, the first common mistake that you can make and that you often do make is showing your users a lot of different features in your product without having any clear goal why you're showing these features to them. So, first of all, now I know this comes second in the newsletter, but I think it's actually more important than the welcome screen mistake. Make sure that every flow you build inside your product has a specific goal and that you don't show your users another flow, another tooltip, another experience unless that goal has been achieved, right? This is just like a common this is just common sense, right? The same way as you wouldn't teach someone how to ride a bicycle or how to ski before they can walk, right? You don't want your users to complete steps that are further down the line or to even inform them about these steps before they have adopted the basic features of your product, right? That will allow them to progress to the next stage. Right. Another common problem that I see, a common mistake, is asking for more information than you really need for the first run experience. So, if you want to lead your users to, say, complete the first one or two steps that they need to achieve their first goal, right? Then the only piece of information you need is what their first goal is, right? You can ask them about the rest later, even if you need the information, say some demographic information or some information about their role, you can still ask that at a later stage of the user journey. So if you want to create a long onboarding survey, break it down into pieces and ask one question after every goal has been actually achieved. Right. This is also a really good time to ask your user for a favor because, well, spending their time on answering questions that you need is a favor because the user kind of feels like they have unlocked a little achievement and they may basically be more inclined to cooperate than when they are frustrated by a long and boring onboarding experience. And finally, the last mistake that I wanted to mention today, well, not the last mistake, of course, but one other major mistake that I see over and over again is basically that the onboarding stops abruptly after the new user onboarding is finished, and after the users can do like the bare minimum inside your product. You don't really create secondary onboarding experiences to keep pushing users down the user journey. And I had, on the other hand, a really nice conversation with one of our prospects recently who asked me, but how do we keep, pushing them to unlock more value in the product? And I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to hug you now, because this is the question that I feel every product manager and product marketing manager should be asking themselves all the time, and they don't, right? Because you don't see continuous onboarding in many products. And that can really, really mess up your retention rate, right? Because if the user feels like they don't know what to do next, or they have sort of derived very little value from your product, they may not even know that certain features they are looking for are there in your product, they will likely start looking for alternatives. So the choice is yours. You can either build a successful user onboarding like Slack, which is something that I have described in more detail below, or well, not myself, but one of our content writers to be specific. Or you can keep on making these mistakes and probably miss out on a lot of trial to paid conversions and higher retention rate. Well, that sounded a bit like a blackmail. I don't want to blackmail anyone, but go check out the good practices, try to stay away from the bad practices, and I will see you next week. Have a great one. Bye bye.